What is up YouTube? I'm Royal, I'm rank 1 Wildrift, and in this video we're taking a look at the patch 6.2 tier list, but obviously as you can tell from the length of this video, this is gonna be slightly different. If you just wanna see where I've placed everything, feel free to skip at the end of each section. However, in this video, because the patch completely changed the meta, I would like to just slowly build the tier list with you and explain my thoughts on why each champion is rated in each tier. This can open up more discussion and have you guys understand my point of view for putting champions in certain spots. I'll give a little more insight in the criteria that I use of the tier list as well, and I think this is going to be a good way for us to have some more open communication, because it seems like a lot of you disagree with where I place champions in tier lists. So I think this is going to be a better way to go about this. So let's start off with the Baron lane. Then we'll do jungle, mid lane, ADC, and support. So Baron lane is probably where I think a lot of really big changes have happened, right? A lot of champions have gotten buffed with the addition of Hullbreaker. The buff Death's Dance is really getting a lot of bruisers. And on top of that, the introduction of teleport is actually completely shifting the meta in high reload play. I have made a members only video on how to use teleport, especially specifically in the Baron lane, to gain an advantage, right? Completely dominate your lane through wave management and the teleport play. The minion changes have also contributed quite a lot to the meta changes. But yeah, if you're interested in learning how to actually use teleport, please consider becoming a member. If not, don't worry, throughout my live streams you will learn how to use teleport quite well as well. But if you do want to support me more, please feel free to become a member. I upload at least once a month a member only video that's usually educational. So yeah, let's start off with the Baron lane. So Akali can be played in the Baron lane. However, mages or AP champions are not that great in the Baron lane at the moment. Because I feel like mages have become a lot better in the mid lane as well. So you already have an AP there. There are some exceptions. Rumble is pretty good. Gwen is pretty good. Akali overall has definitely not been nerfed from the changes. But she hasn't really been buffed either, and it's going to be hard for her to deal with hull breakers in the side lane later on. So her damage is still high. She can still be a good pick, especially if you're like a one-trick Akali. Her matchups, most of them aren't great, so I'm between A tier and B tier with Akali, to be honest. I do think that it's kind of useful that she's a flex pick mid lane too, so I'm taking that into consideration. But good bruiser type players will punish you really hard. You're gonna get dove quite easily, even with your second ability a lot of the time. So I think I'm gonna keep her at A tier, but she's between A and B tier if anything. Next up on the Baron lane, we have Camille, who's definitely an S tier champion. She's in consideration for God tier if anything. The recent buff to her base AD and its second ability have been very nice. Hullbreaker is obviously a great item with her. She's an amazing split pusher and one of the best teleport users in the game because of how strong her roams are. She's honestly one of the champions that I could definitely put in God tier. She's really strong in my opinion. Darius benefits a bit with the changes overall because of the item enchants. The boot enchants, right? He really likes the new boot enchants. However, he just can't really keep up with these Hullbreaker bruisers. His 1v1 potential is quite low. I am between S tier and A tier. I think he's like a strong A tier champion as opposed to Akali, who's in B tier. Honestly, maybe I should just drop Akali into B tier and kind of just start using C and D more. You know what? No, I don't think so. I think Darius and Akali should be the same tier, but I would put Akali over, or Darius above Akali, if anything. Dr. Mundo is quite weak this patch. Overall, this patch has been a nerf to him. He doesn't really have a lot of good matchups right now. Tanks in general don't look that good other than Ornn, I guess. Yeah, overall, he's just weaker this patch with the changes, so I can't really justify putting him higher than B tier. Fiora is our first God tier champion. Eclipse got buffed, which is a core item on her. She benefits a lot from the split push changes. She's a great Hullbreaker user. She benefits from the minion changes as well, quite heavily. She benefits from the boot enchant. She was already, I think already had her God tier last patch, but she's just been buffed since then pretty much with a new patch. so she's definitely a god tier champion. Garen is another high A tier champion. He's a great niche count. He's great against everything that's not like a Fiora, you know. He's just an okay like lane disabler, so he will always be at least A tier. However, I don't think that the meta is necessarily great for Garen right now. He's just a good tank that can also deal damage and stand his own against a lot of bruisers, so he'll always be good in that capacity. Gragas is going straight to B tier, just a weak AP top. There's way better choices. I wouldn't really recommend playing him in the Baron lane right now at all, to be honest. I think you're better off playing him in the jungle, support, or even mid lane more than anything. I'm not going to consider Graves a Baron laner for the sake of this video, since his play rate is really low. I would probably put him in B or A tier, but I don't really consider him a Baron laner. Gwen, we're going to put in A tier. Gwen has been kind of struggling for a long time. She scales like a monster. She has benefited from the Nashor's Tooth changes. However, I don't think it's enough to justify putting her in the S tier with the S tier champions. However, again, similar to Darius, she has a lot of good matchups. She can snowball, especially if you're a really good Gwen player. Nashor's Tooth buff helps her quite a bit. So I'm going to have to put her in A tier. She benefits from teleport quite a bit, I think, too. But I just can't justify putting her into S tier. There's just going to be better champions in the S tier. Irelia, I think overall in the Baron lane, she's actually maybe even slightly better now than she was last patch. I'm kind of thinking of putting her into B tier or A tier. Again, she's like a Kali, where if you can get her on the right matchup, then you can definitely pop off and snowball. I don't think she's a very weak champion. It's just finding the right situation for her, right? But overall, she's a decent champion. She has a lot of carry potential. We're going to put her into A tier. Next up, we have Jax. And Jack's actually a problem for a lot of these champions, including Gwen and Irelia. He just straight up counters these types of champions. He's obviously insanely strong in the 1v1. He benefits from the Hold Breaker and the TP changes. We're going to put him in S tier. Jace going to go into A tier. I think he's okay. He's very strong in lane. He has a lot of snowball potential when played right. However, I just can't justify putting him as high as Jax, Camilla, or Fiora, right? I can justify putting him S tier, but he's a strong A tier pick, especially when played right, and he can bully a lot of lanes. Next up, I have Kayle, who's going immediately into C tier. She just can't really lane against any of these champions. She gets too hard bullied in lane. I think she's better off going mid lane with teleport, and I do think the teleport changes do help her, but she really likes Ghost as well. So it's kind of hard to rate her, but we're going to put her into C tier. Ken's actually a niche decent pick. I think he's better in the mid lane than he is Baron lane though. I think in the Baron lane he can struggle and against a lot of these top matchups, even like the Irelia, the Jax, the Cannon, the Fiora. I think he's better off mid lane if you're gonna play Cannon. I'm between A and B tier, but I think I'm gonna put him A tier. I think he definitely deserves A tier because he does have a lot of carry potential, especially with his ult. He just has a hard time defending against Hold Breaker, right? He's not great in the side lane. These are kind of the weaknesses that keep him lower, in my opinion. Next up, we have Malphite, who's gonna go into the A tier, mostly because he's a great counter pick. He's a great counter pick to a lot of champions. You can play him against Jax. Against Fiora, I guess it's more of an even matchup. If the Malphite player is good, he can counter Jace, he can counter Irelia. He's a great counter champion, right? If you're playing against Irelia, he's god tier. If you're playing against Jax, he's god tier, right? But against other matchups, like the Darius, like the Gwen, he struggles quite a bit. So we're going to put him in A tier. Obviously, it's more of a counter champion than anything else. Nasus is going to go in B tier. Overall, the patch, I think, has not been too kind to him. He just doesn't win 1v1 against Fiora, for example. Like, his biggest strength is 1v1, so he's not even that great at it right now. I know a lot of people have really overhyped him, even after the nerfs he received. I think the nerfs that he received were actually really big. I can't justify putting him higher than B tier. He's just weak. His laning phase is too good. He can't really run down champions anymore. There's too many peeling tools. I don't think he really benefits from the boots, maybe from the dash one, but the glory kind of got weaker for him. So I can't justify putting him any higher than that. Nautilus, for the purpose of this, I'm not going to consider a Baron laner. Olaf is going straight up to S tier. Olaf benefits quite a bit from the boot changes. He's extremely strong in the 1v1. I think he's actually a pretty underrated Baron laner. He wins really hard in a lot of matchups, and it's really hard to deal with him later on in the game. If you don't have the right team comp to deal with Olaf, he will run you down with his ultimate and just pop off. Pantheon is just not a Baron laner in Wild Rift, unfortunately. His base stats are just not good enough to 1v1 against a lot of these champions. He would need some base stat buffs before being able to really compete in the Baron lane, even though I do really like him, and I hope we can see him more in the Baron lane. We'll talk more about him in the jungle, but I'm going to include him in the Baron lane because he's played there pretty often. Renekton, we're going to put to S tier. I think Renekton maybe got slight nerfs, if anything, from this patch. However, I still think he's one of the strongest laners in the game, which in my eyes holds a lot of value because you can snowball your lane, the enemies can't really punish you, it's really hard to dive. He just has a lot going for him in the Baron lane, but he's definitely gonna be a little weaker against a lot of these hold breaker users. Yes, he can go hold breaker himself, but it's not great on him. He does have a point and click stun, which is always valuable. So I definitely think he's gonna maintain status as an S tier. I think he's better than the champions in A tier. However, I don't think he's super OP. Riven is a champion that I'm not sure if I should be putting in S tier or A tier. If you're like insanely good on Riven, this is definitely an S tier champion. It's just you don't really see a lot of good Rivens. I'm really struggling on if I should put her S tier or A tier, because I think personally that she's really strong in the Baron lane, especially with the Conqueror buffs if played well. However, I don't see a lot of really good Riven players. I'm still gonna put her S tier just because I think that's where she deserves to be. I just think the player base is not really good enough and doesn't understand her matchups well enough to really make use of her, but I personally think that she has a lot of carry potential and she's really strong in lane if played well. And she does slightly benefit from the changes to the items as well. I think especially the Eclipse buff is nice on her, but I think especially that Gourd Drinker is a decent item on her to give her some more healing. Set we're gonna put in B tier. I think Set is actually not that strong. I think struggles a lot against these top tier picks in God and S tier. He's just 1v1 potential is really low. He's a great noob champion. Like if you don't really know what you're doing because of how tanky he is and because of his second ability, you can definitely catch enemies off guard. But he's quite easy to outplay. He's very easy to kite. In my opinion, he struggles. I know a lot of you in the comments want him to be higher up, but he just doesn't really do anything. His laning phase is too weak, while he's a primarily an early game champion. Yes, if you stack like a bunch of hard steel stacks on him, he can be useful, but I just can't justify putting him any higher than this, to be honest. He's like a strong B tier. I think he's stronger than these B tier champions, but he's not as strong as the A tier champions, in my opinion. You know, he's closer to Akali than he is Mundo, so we're gonna put him in A tier, but it's a low A tier. I wouldn't put him higher than that. Shen, I think Shen overall got nerfed with the patch. His wave clear is his main issue, and he just can't really wave clear with the minion changes as well. He gets countered way too hard by these champions, and the addition of teleport, I think, hurts him more than helps him. You could in theory say that, oh, he can ult and join the fight and TP back to lane, but now the other champions can TP to join the fight as well. It's kind of a blemish on his ultimate that was very unique in Wild Rift because you didn't have many ways to teleport across the map. Overall, I think got nerfed and his counters kind of got buffed. So I'm gonna put him into A tier. However, he's still a decent tank choice if you like playing tanks. Singed, I think, is actually a very niche pick. I think when played well, a good Singed player can absolutely dominate the game. It's rare to see good Singed players, but when played well and you really utilize his ability to get picks, right? Using your second ability, running up someone, flinging them, he can really have a lot of value. He has a very non-interactive playstyle with his poison, but I think a really good Singed player can definitely make a difference and be in the S tier. Sion, I think Sion overall got nerfed. This version of Hullbreaker is not great on him. It's better on attack speed champions more than anything, which Singed is not. Like most tanks, he kind of received a nerf. Obviously, this hits Singed the hardest because he's a very niche and unique champion. that relies on lane control to really play the game. He's just not great right now. It's just the hard truth. Young Timothy, I'm gonna put into A tier. I thought that the buffs for him would have been better. I thought that Leandries would have been better. It's a good first item and gives him a lot of early game power. But Leandries just doesn't scale very well. Doesn't scale as well as he used to. So his late game is a little weaker. He's a very dependent champion on Leandries. So overall, I think he's a little weaker. So we're gonna put him into A tier. He also struggles against a lot of these lane dominant early game Baron laners. I really thought that he would be more OP than he is, but after playing him quite a bit, I still think he's good. He's just not S tier, you know? You get me. Next up, Tryndamere. So this is a champion that I saw a lot of people misjudge. I saw a lot of people say that a lot of people are kind of like ignoring him. Like he's not like this super broken champion right now, and I definitely think he is. And I think he definitely belongs in S tier. The buffs on him were really big. He actually the main beneficiary of the crit item changes. They were like specifically made for Tryndamere or something, because they're really, really good for Tryndamere and what he likes to do. He works really well with the soul transfer item. He works really well with a Phantom Dancer. He works really well with Magnetic Blaster, being able to instantly wave clear and getting the extra range in the first solo. That helps a lot. Very, very strong champion, very unique champion. I think the rank 1 player in NA right now, he's in master tier and he's just spamming Tryndamere. Really, really strong champion, very underrated. I don't know why people are not rating him higher right now. But I think he's one of the strongest champions in the Baron lane right now. For the purpose of this tier list, we're not going to include the Vayne or Varus in the Baron lane. Wukong is next up. Overall, I don't think he was like nerfed, or I think he was maybe slightly nerfed instead of buffed. His 1v1 potential is just not that high to compete with these early game really strong champions. But of course, he has the team fight prowess to actually be useful later on. Overall, I can't really justify putting him in S tier right now. However, I think he's one of the stronger A tier picks in the Baron lane. Yasuo. Yasuo is actually one of the main beneficiaries of the item changes. I'm gonna put him higher in the. I think in mid lane we'll probably put him S tier, but for the purpose of Baron lane, he just struggles too much against pretty much every S tier champion here. So I can't really justify putting him into S tier when he's getting completely crushed by any of these champions. Yasuo will destroy him, Camille will destroy him, Fiora especially will destroy him, right? So I can't justify putting him any higher. But overall, he got slightly buffed even in the Baron lane, in my opinion. Next up, we have his Wind Brother, Yone, which again, similar situation. Yone has a better argument for S tier. And I think I might leave him in S tier because he does a lot better in these matchups that are bad for him than Yasuo. Because of how his kit functions, how his third ability functions. It's a lot easier for him to farm safely. His second ability is decent poke and outrange. I think I'm gonna put him in S tier, but it's very close between A and S tier for the Yone. I think both of them are probably slightly better in mid lane right now. It's just the matchups, but I think Yone definitely deserves to be S tier. Warwick, we're going to put into A tier. He has a very strong laning phase, but other than that, the champion is piss useless. He relies on one-shotting people with his ultimate that are out of position, but that's a cheesy playstyle, and he's not even very good at doing that. There's better champions at doing that. So I can't justify it. Even A tier might be a little high for him, to be honest. But you guys know I'm the biggest Warwick hater of all time. Aatrox. Aatrox is God tier. I think he benefited quite a bit from the item changes. It's quite a bit harder to build Mortal Reminder now unless you're an attack speed based champion, right? So less anti-heal exists. He benefits from Eclipse. He benefits from Gore Drinker. And he was already one of the strongest champions in the Baron lane. I might even had him God tier in my previous tier list. He was either S tier or God tier. But he's definitely God tier in this patch. Overall, he benefited quite a bit, while no changes really hurt him. He mostly benefited from this patch, so he's definitely going to God tier. Urgot is pretty weak. He's going to B tier. Nothing really changed for him this patch, However, all his counters kind of got stronger. He's after laning phase, he just falls off really hard. And it's really hard to really play the mid game with Urgot unless you are able to get a big lead from lane. So I don't think he's very good. I'm gonna put him in B tier, but I think he's stronger than the other B tier champions, but definitely nowhere near A tier. Is my judgment on him. Swain I'm not gonna include in the Baron lane. I think he's more of a mid laner at this point, and it's been established. Ornn is a tank that I could, in theory, put in God tier. If you're gonna play any tank, Ornn is the one because of how strong he. I think he's probably stronger than all of these S tier champions. This can really justify putting in God tier. He still has a decent early laning phase, right? Or he's actually one of the strongest early game tanks. So he can trade against these champions and he can keep up in the laning phase. And then, of course, his late game is absolutely insane. I just think he struggles against Hullbreaker quite a bit. So if he plays against Hullbreaker Fiora, he's going to struggle. He's going to struggle in the side lane in general. But the TP changes do help him quite a bit. Overall, I'm going to put him S tier. But if I were to put any champion from S tier into God tier, it would definitely be Ornn. Vlad, for the purpose of this, I'm not going to include. Volibear, I'm going to include. I'm going to put him in B tier. He did get buffed a while back and did some small compensation nerfs. Overall, I think he struggles in the Baron lane. I don't think he really... So, there's champions that he beats that are like A tier. For example, if he's playing Volibear against Irelia, Volibear will probably win. But that's not what this list is about, right? This list is about how useful the champion is in the game. Can he win you the game, right? And Volibear just can't. His laning phase is strong, but after that, he falls off the face of the earth. I do like his ability to turret dive. I think he's slightly better in the jungle, but even then, he doesn't seem great. I'm going to put him into B tier. I don't think I can justify putting him any higher than that in his current state. Then we have Maokai, who, I will include him, but again, B tier, could possibly even be C tier. He has the same issue as a lot of these other tanks. His wave clear is not good. He gets bullied too hard by the top picks. It's really not a great meta for tanks other than Ornn, just because of how strong Ornn is in the early game. Mordekaiser, we're going to put in A tier. He's one of the strongest 1v1 champions, right? While he does get countered by a lot of the top champions, he can definitely hold his own. His ultimate is still insane power. And, you know, if you're a good Mordekaiser player, he's still definitely one of the better picks. So I think he's a strong A tier champion for sure. I'm not going to include Lissandra, not including Heimerdinger, not including Viego. Ambessa, we're going to put in God tier. I think Ambessa is just the strongest champion. She's after her reworks, she's just overbuffed. She just needs some like damage nerfs. It's not like her kid is overwhelming or anything. She just does too much damage while being too tanky and being too fast. She just needs some slight nerfs. There's nothing more to say. It's not like she got a big buff or nerf from the patch. The champion is just, she's just busted. Rumble will also be going into the God tier. I think that Rumble has a lot of potential. I think he's very tanky. He wins a lot of these bruiser matchups. He's a beast in team fights and he can actually hold his own in the lane and the side lane to be able to defend these split pushers. So I definitely think that he should be in the God tier. Next up we have Gnar, who is definitely in the S tier. Gnar is a great neutralizing champion into a lot of matchups because of his range, right? He's able to just outrange champions and still be really useful as mini Gnar in the side lane. But of course, he can also be a massive tank and completely take over team fights with one good ultimate. So definitely an S tier champion. He's been like S tier or God tier since release. Poopy, we're gonna put into A tier. I do think that Poopy's strong, and I think in the right matchups, right, she can still be S tier and God tier. She's a great neutralizing champion against a lot of these split push bruisers. They have a lot of dashes as well. However, I like her mid and late game strengths. You know what? I'm gonna put Poopy S tier. I think Poopy might still be really. She's like a strong A tier, weak S tier champion, but she can be really good at neutralizing some of these champions. You just have to get her at a good matchup, but even at a bad matchup, she can still provide some decent value. So I'm gonna put her in S tier. Next up, we have Ryze. I think Ryze is actually kind of underrated in the Baron lane. I think he's actually a pretty good Baron laner. That's why I've always had him high in the Baron lane. However, this patch is probably a slight nerf for him in the Baron lane. While his wave clear is good, so he can side lane against a lot of these bruisers. The problem with the Rise is that he kind of just stands still, right? His mobility is pretty low. So now with the new boot enchant, especially with Stride Breaker, it can be very easy for these champions just catch him out and one-shot him. Like the Fiora, right? The Ambessa can go on him. He's just kind of risky to play in the side lane against these bruiser split pushers. His laning phase is a bit weak. I think he's close to S tier, but I can't really justify putting him in S tier as of right now. Finally, Aurora, the new champion. I'm going to put her B tier. I think she's okay. She's better mid lane. She has decent matchups in the Baron lane. Can be played Baron lane. Overall, the strength of the champion, I think she's okay. I don't think she's OP. A lot of people think she's OP. I don't think she's OP. I think she's on the weak side, and Baron lane is just not that great for her. I'm just going to quickly check in case I've missed any champions. I don't think I have. Right, chat? I guess I'm not going to consider Rengar a Baron laner. I don't think I've missed any champions. If I have, please comment down below who I should put in the Baron lane and let me know. Now we're doing jungle. Starting off with a Mumu. For the first time in a while, a Mumu is leaving the S and God tiers. She got nerfed again. This time it's actually pretty big. And they removed a lot of his tankiness. It's also not a great patch for a Mumu based on all of the changes that have happened. His clear speed is still good, so he's still a decent champion. But I can no longer justify putting him in S or God tier. It has finally come to an end after almost a year of a Mumu being a super OP jungler. He's finally quite weak. Camille, I'm also going to add into A tier. I think Camille is one of... Don't mistake in that A tier is weak, right? A tier is good, especially a lot of the depends on the situation champions will go into A tier. The main issue with Camille is that her jungle farming is really slow. But other than that, she's really OP, right? She has some of the strongest ganks in the game. She scales like an absolute monster. But I just can't justify putting her God tier because of how weak her clear speed is in the early game. So her tempo is really weak as compared to the S and God tier champions. Next up in jungle we have Darius, who will also go into A tier. However, for different reasons than Camille. His clear speed is actually really fast. And he scales okay, right? But his ganks are kind of weak. He just runs at enemies with his third ability. He can flash third ability them, but overall his ganks are pretty weak. And he's a very easy champion to kite out and burst down in the early game. So you really need to make sure that you're paying attention when you pick him, right? He's not gonna be good in every situation. But if you can find a team where the enemies have like these slow, bulky champions that they can't really escape or burst down Darius, he can be insanely strong in those situations. So I'm going to put him into A tier. Diana, I'm also going to put into A tier. I think Diana is a good, strong APSS in jungler. I don't think she's as strong as Echo, which is her main competitor in the jungle, right? Why would you pick Diana when you can pick Echo? That's kind of the main thing. She's just a lot weaker than Echo, and her clear speed is just kind of slow. Speaking of Echo, he's going to be our first S tier champion. He didn't really benefit from this champion. He didn't really benefit this patch other than the proto build change, right? This is going to help him quite a bit. Nashor's Tooth becomes a viable item on him again. Instead of going Lich Bane, you can go Nashor's Tooth. What a lot of people do in the jungle is go Lich Bane with First Strike, while in mid lane you would go Lich Bane with Fleet. But I think you can consider Nashor's Tooth Fleet in the jungle as well. After the Nashor's Tooth buff, and I think that's really good on Echo. And the main reason why Diana also is an S tier is why would you ever pick Diana when you can pick Echo? But Diana is one of the stronger A tier champions if you can play her really good. Fizz we're going to put into B tier. Similar champion to Echo and Diana, just weaker, right? His clear speed is slower than them. His scaling is okay. The main problem with Fizz, like third abilities, cooldown is just way too long. It's longer than PC League of Legends, which is crazy for a Wild Rift ability. So that's kind of keeping him out of the jungle. I'm not sure if I included Mundo, but yeah, Mundo is a C tier jungler. If anything, don't play Mundo in the jungle, but I'm gonna put him here because I've seen quite a few Mundos. He's just way too slow in the clear. He doesn't really scale well. I mean, he wasn't even good in the Baron lane, which is his main role, so I definitely don't recommend playing him in the jungle right now. Evelynn is going to S tier. As you guys know, I've been playing a lot of Evelynn. She's probably my most played champion this season. She's really, really good. After the first ability buff she received a while ago, she's been good since then. I think this patch might actually be a slight nerf to her because Evelynn, believe it or not, is actually a really good late game champion. And the jungle, you don't really reach that late game that often anymore because games are just kind of ending faster. So she can just do this hyper farm into 1v9 angle where she usually can because of her insane late game burst. That's the only justification for not putting her God tier. I think she's a top 3 to top 5 champion this patch. Moving on, Fiora, I don't think she's really a jungler. You can play her jungle just because how overtuned she is, but I'm not going to include her for the purpose of this tier list. Gragas, we're going to put in B tier. He's not great as an AP jungler as compared to other AP junglers. He has decent burst, but ever since they nerfed his AP scalings, he just hasn't really been a top tier jungler because he doesn't scale like a monster and his early game is not that strong. Gwen, we're actually going to put into A tier. Again, it's very similar to the Baron lane argument. She's not insanely strong and her first clear is actually quite bad. But if you can play her well, she's definitely an insane hyper carry late game that can completely take over games. She's closer to B tier than A tier, but I'm gonna put her A tier for this tier list, I think. Because of the Nashor Sooth buff, and the Conqueror buff, which you'll often run Conqueror in the jungle, while in top lane a lot of times you might need fleet footwork based on your matchup. So I'm going to put her in A tier, but it's an iffy A tier, so she could be B tier as well. Graves, I was hoping that Graves would really benefit from the item changes, but it seems like the pacing has really hurt him because he can't really get to his late game fantasy anymore. A lot of these hyper carry junglers either got like turbo buffed because the items are really good on them, or they got slightly nerfed because of the pacing of the game. And Graves is one of those champions that kind of suffered from the weak pacing of the game, or the faster pacing of the game. He can't really get his 3-4 items where he wants to be, where he can 1v9 anymore, because the games are just like snowballing a lot faster. However, he's still a really good choice if you enjoy playing Graves. By any means, he's not weak. Jarvan is actually one of the stronger champions this patch. Because of the pacing of the game. Jarvan is one of the highest tempo champions because he has really good... So, like, there's 3 different... Think of it like a triangle, right? In the jungle, you have ganking, farming, late game carrying, right? Jarvan is really good at ganking and farming, right? He's not great at late game carrying, but that has kind of become less relevant. Graves is really good at late game carrying and really good at farming, but he's bad at ganking, right? So he's kind of become weaker because the meta has shifted more towards ganking and early game dominance, but still farming really good, and away from late game carrying because you don't really get to your late games, right? So this is kind of the justification for Jarvan being a lot better this patch, while Graves being a little weaker, right? The priorities have kind of changed in the jungle. This is like the magical triangle of jungle, right? How much you can gank, how much you can farm, how much you can carry late game. Those are the 3 factors that really matter, right? Aurelia is not really a jungler, so I'm not going to include her here. Jax, B tier. His clear is just too slow, unfortunately. I would love to put him any higher, but they just need to make his passive work on jungle camps and he'll instantly be S tier. But his clear speed is just too slow. Can't justify putting him jungle. Kayle, C tier. While I do think this arguably her best role, to be honest, unless you have, like, she's just way too easy to punish in the early game. So I really can't put her higher than that. Kha'Zix is going to go into A tier. Overall, I think that Kha'Zix might have been slightly nerfed. Duskblade is just nerfed for him since he already has his ulti. He doesn't care about that useless passive. Eclipse is decent on him. Overall, he's okay, but he has a very similar problem with a lot of these other champions. He's more of like a late game carry once he hyper farms. His ganks aren't the strongest in the early game, which have kind of become of higher importance. Not a terrible champion, but there's just champions that kind of do what he can, just a little better. So we're gonna put him into A tier. Next up, we have Lee Sin. You guys already know where he's going. Lee Sin is always God tier or S tier because he's really good at ganking, he's really good at farming, and he's really good at late game carrying as well. If you're actually good on Lee Sin, I've seen a lot of people say, oh, Lee Sin falls off. He doesn't fall off if you know what you're doing. His ulti is one of the most broken abilities in the game. He has insane mobility and really high damage. He does not fall off, you just don't know how to play Lee Sin. If you see a good Lee Sin play, you'll see how good this champion is in the late game. There's a champion that I'm debating putting into God tier, but I think that he isn't as strong as the champions that will go into God tier. I think he's a lot closer to the S tier champions, but again, he's one of the stronger S tier champions. Master Yi. Master Yi is interesting. I haven't played him enough to really know if he belongs in S tier. I've seen a lot of people telling me that Crit Master Yi is really good. However, I don't know how true that is. So I'm gonna put him into A tier because I genuinely don't know. Maybe he is S tier. I haven't tested enough to really be able to know. But from my games playing against a few Master Yis, I don't think he's that good, and I don't think the crit build is that great on him. Witsense also gets slightly nerfed, which is one of his core items usually. If he doesn't go crit, if he goes on hit. I can't justify putting him higher than A tier from what I've seen in my experience. If you guys disagree in the comments, this is a champion that I'm definitely up to debate on including in the S tier. Nasus is going straight into C tier. He just clears the jungle too slowly and doesn't really get a lot of stacks. Morgana is actually one of those junglers that I think slightly got nerfed because Morgana's main thing was farming the jungle insanely fast, like insanely fast. Her ganks were always mediocre and her late game potential was weak, but she provided a lot of utility to her team. However, the Liandry's change I think hurts her a lot because Liandry's is weaker in the late game, right, and better in the early game, so she kind of like falls off. I think every Liandry's usually that really relied on Liandry's kind of got weaker if they were like AP. But I think champions like Rumble in the Baron lane, who I included in God tier, benefit because they can go tankier, right? They can just go Liandry's into like Twin Guard or something and like be super tanky. And still do a lot of damage with Liandry's. But the full AP champions kind of like lost favor. So we're going to put Morgana into A tier. Next up, we have Nunu, who's an S tier champion. Nunu benefits a lot from this patch. He can actually just like one-shot Baron at 11 minutes with his team. His consume is extremely useful. He clears jungle really fast. He's an insane ganker. And again, we shifted from late game carrying more towards ganking or an early game snowball. So Nunu, obviously because of the snowball, will be going into S tier. Yeah, just overall a good patch for Nunu. And he was already a really strong champion in my opinion. Nautilus is going to go to B tier. I've been seeing a lot of AP Nautilus. I think it's okay. I don't think it's great. I don't think it's even good, to be honest. It's a little cheesy. If enemies know what they're doing, he's pretty easy to take care of, you know. All of similar reasons on why he's really good in the Baron lane. He's really good in the jungle. His ganks are actually quite weak. His ganks are quite strong. Excuse me. If you can just find the right team comp for him, if you're playing against the right team comp, he's one of those champions that can just run in and completely take over the game. So I'm definitely gonna include him in the S tier. Pantheon is another champion that's going into the S tier. He's a lot better in the jungle than he's in Baron lane, and that's because of his ganks. He has insanely powerful ganks, really good counter ganks as well with his ultimate, and he clears jungle pretty fast and does a lot of early game damage. He's also slightly benefiting from the item enchant changes as well, so we can't really put him any lower than this. Rammus I'm debating putting into God tier actually. I think Rammus is really strong in this patch, but I think a lot of the reason why Rammus is strong is that people want to try out all these new items, so they're picking champions that kind of suck into Rammus. So when the enemies are playing like 3 ADCs, they're playing Senna and Jinx, then you just pick Rammus, build Thornmail, and insta win the game. But in reality, against really good players and a really good team comp, I think Rammus is good, but not super OP or anything like that. However, he definitely still belongs in S tier. Rengar is gonna go into the A tier. I think overall maybe he's slightly weaker. However, I do like the new Duskblade on him can be really useful. I just don't think that the problem with Rengar is he's just not as strong. His stats, his numbers are just not as high as other assassins or other junglers in general. Why would I ever play Rengar when I can play something like a Lee Sin? He's just not that strong in terms of numbers. However, he's definitely stronger than a lot of junglers, so I think A tier is a good place for him. We're gonna see a lot of A tier junglers, by the way, because first of all, there's a lot of junglers in Wild Rift, but also because there's a lot of champions that are really good in certain situations. They have their niche, they're good, but they're not amazing, which is what we're looking for in the S tier, right? Riven is a champion that's amazing. She has really good carry potential, good late game, good ganking, good farming. She's overall just a really good jungler. I see a lot of people praise her as like the best jungler for a while now. I don't think so, but she's definitely at least an S tier champion in my opinion. Not really jungler, not really jungler. Shan jungle, we can put him in the jungle. I'll put him into A tier. He has decent clear speed, but most of his value comes from his ultimate, right? Being able to always counter gank with his ultimate is extremely valuable, so you can just sit AFK farm and then counter gank with your ultimate and turn fights around. Especially if you have a winning team, then Shan can be really good in the jungle. But I can't put him into S tier for pretty much the same reasons. Shyvana I'm going to put in the A tier. I think Shyvana is a noob trap champion. I think that she's really good against bad players, but champions that know how to play against Shyvana can easily kite her out and not let her like hyper farm and hyper carry. Again, her ganking is really weak. Remember, triangle, really bad. Shyvana has bad ganking. She has good late game hyper carrying. I think overall she probably received a slight nerf, if anything, through this patch. Who's the next jungler? Singe, no. Sion, no. Timo, no. Tryndamere, we're putting into S tier. Very similar reasons on why he was S tier in the Baron lane. I think he's one of the more underrated champions, one of the best crit users in the game. He can completely take over games. I think he's better in the Baron lane, to be honest, but he's still really good in the jungle. I think the buffs on him were really good. Again, his ganking isn't great, but it's not bad. His slow can definitely catch well surprising and definitely run champions down quite easily, and his skirmishing is really good, right? He's 2v1, he's 2v2, he's 1v1. His skirmishing is really good, so it's not like he's weak in these fighting type of situations in the early game like a Shyvana would be. Moving on to Vi, who's of course in the S tier, one of the best gankers in the game, one of the best. She's similar to a Jarvan type champion, where she's able to just like have the bulkiness, have the raw strength and fighting potential to just go in with your ultimate, kill someone, you know, high priority targets with your ultimate. She just really, it makes no sense not to have her in S tier. Wukong, I guess, again, another similar champion to Vi and Jarvan. Strong bruiser, really good team fighting ultimate, right? Can snowball games really hard. Again, definitely an S tier champion. Xin Zhao actually thought about putting into S tier because I think he's actually benefited from this patch. No, I will put him into S tier now that I think about it. I think he's benefited a lot this patch. The enchants are good on him. The pacing of the game favors him. I see no reason not to upgrade him from A tier into S tier. Overall, he's like a really good champion this patch. Zed, we're putting into S tier just because of how good this champion can be if you're good at the game. His main weakness is his early game clears are really bad, but if you can get an ult kill at level 5 with him and get a bit of gold and improve your clear, he's just an absolute monster. You guys have seen Corrupt's stream, you know exactly what I'm talking about. This champion is so insane when played properly, even in the jungle. Yasuo is not really a jungler, but Yone kind of is. We're going to put him into A tier. I actually think if you're going to play Yone ever in the jungle, this is probably the patch to do it. His clear speed in the beginning is kind of slow until you get your items. But he has decent ganking, he has good dueling, good fighting in general. And overall, he kind of got buffed with the crit items. So I can't justify putting him in lower than that. Warwick, I should probably put Warwick in S tier, but I'm not turbo happy about it. Again, similar reasons with Berlin. He has a really, really strong early game, and his ultimate is great at catching people out, but I can't really justify putting him any higher than that. Even that might be a little too high for our boy Warwick. Because of how easy he is to play against, how easy he is to kite, how easy he is to just one-shot in fights. But overall, I think I can place him any lower than that because he does have a really, really good early game and he can snowball really hard with his ultimate. So even though I don't personally like it, I'm going to put him into S tier. Kane into A tier. Blue Kane did receive some buffs. I think it was the patch before this one, actually. The items don't really benefit him. Both blue and red Kane are good, just not great, and I would put him into S tier if you started with form, but you're kind of sacrificing your whole early game to get the form, and I think that's too big of a weakness, and the reward of blue or red Kane is not enough to justify that early game weakness. Aatrox is going straight into S tier for very similar champions as why he was God tier in the Baron lane. The one problem with the jungle Aatrox is his clear speed is meh. But when you're fighting, you're still playing Aatrox and you're still gonna be demolishing everyone. Lilia, I really hope that Lilia will get buffed, but Liandry's again is kind of like a slight nerf in the late game. She's still a really, really good champion. Her ultimate is still one of the strongest abilities in the game, especially for a jungler, being able to just like put everyone to sleep. Her damage is still really high, so I can't justify putting her lower than S tier, but definitely not one of the most broken champions or anything anymore. I think she was better in the last patch more than anything. We're not putting Vayne in the jungle in this tier list. We're not putting Yasuo in the jungle in this tier list. Twitch, we're going to put him into D tier. Just to discourage people from playing him in the jungle. I think the changes probably helped him more than anything, but he's still not good enough. His clear speed is just too slow, right? Like, you still can't really justify it. Volibear is going straight into maybe B tier, maybe A tier. I'm not 100% sure. Probably belongs in B tier. The patches overall has not been very kind to him. He's not benefiting from any of the new items, enchants, or anything like that. The nerfs that they did to him a while ago, a few patches ago, were actually place him quite far behind. If you guys disagree and you think Jungle Volibear is good, please let me know why in the comments. I just don't think this champion really have any impact right now. Hecarim into A tier. He does good damage, he's really good at farming, he's really good at ganking, he's kind of like the GOAT of all worlds. But the problem with Hecarim is that he's not strong enough. Like, he's just not as strong as the S tier champions. His damage isn't enough, his bruising isn't enough. He's decent, but his numbers are a little too low right now. Nyla, I'm going to put into S tier. I think overall the items have been a buff to her. She's more of a niche champion that struggles in the early game. It's like this hyper scaling late game carry, which again I said was weaker this patch, but she does benefit a lot from the crit items. So I'm going to put her in S tier. Especially if you manage to reach 5 items with a new Infinity Edge, she just absolutely destroys. So I can't really justify putting her lower. So we're going to keep her there. Fiddlesticks, S tier. One of the most underrated junglers, especially now. I think Fiddlesticks, it's his time to shine now that the pacing of the game has changed and it's not hyper farm based. He has really good ganks. His ultimate is one of the strongest abilities in the game, and with Malignance, it can be really good. I think he's gone under the radar for a while and he's one of the better junglers in my opinion. Next up we have Kindred. Kindred is the champion that I highly debated putting God tier in my tier list. I think the buffs him are really, really good. I've seen, if you guys have probably seen me play him quite a bit on stream. I think he's one of the stronger champions in the game right now. I just can't really justify putting him into God tier. I just can't really justify putting him into God tier. But I think he's one of the most underrated champions. I definitely think you guys should give him a chance if you like playing Kindred. This is one of the best metas for them. A very strong champion, benefits a lot from the item changes and the natural buffs she got. I think I had her A tier in my previous tier list, I don't remember, but she's really, really strong right now. I really debate putting her into God tier. Nocturne, again, another great S tier champion. This is a champion I could very easily put in God tier as well. I think he's one of the strongest S tier champions, one of the strongest champions in general. I think he's like a better version of Warwick in the sense of his ultimate is more useful and does kind of a similar purpose. Like, you can't go into the side lane when you're playing against Nocturne, you know? So even if you're like a good player and you know that Nocturne can just one-shot if you go into side lane, not being able to go side lane is so bad. He just wins every 1v1, he just ults on you and just one-shots you. His early game is still really, really strong. I can rationalize putting him anywhere below S tier. I think he might even be very close to God tier. But again, that's a spot taken by Mbessa. This champion just needs base damage nerfs, just nerf her damage, it's way too high. Same reasons on why she's up in the Baron lane apply to her in the jungle as well. Maokai B tier, jungle clear, just way too slow unfortunately. If you want to play a tank in the jungle, I recommend just going for the Nunu. Mordekaiser is not really a jungler, but he can be played jungle. His clear speed is just too slow. His ganks are too weak without his ultimate. He just kind of he's just better Baron lane. He just kind of farms up in the jungle and just ults people, but it's just not very good. Talon, I think overall maybe have slightly benefited from the patch. However, he just wasn't very strong to begin with. So I can't really rationalize putting him higher than A tier. His damage just a little too low right now. Viego, S tier. Viego is one of the strongest junglers right now. After the buffs to his passive, his clear speed is really, really good. I think actually benefits from the new items and the new enchants quite a bit. So yeah, definitely a strong S tier champion, contender for God tier. Like honestly, there needs to be like an S plus tier here for Nocturne, Kindred, Lee Sin, and Viego. These 4 champions are a tier of their own as compared to the other S tier champions. But I think that is it. There is, I guess, Poopy, who's also played in the jungle, and she's A tier. Again, if you can find her the right matchup for her, she's good, but she can't really compete with the S tier junglers. If you really need Poopy in your team, though, to get rid of these dashing champions, she can be pretty good. But yeah, this is the final jungle tier list. I'm very happy with this. Mid lane. Ori, best mage. The buffs to her first ability a few patches ago and her base health were really, really big. She snowballs really hard. This is a great meta for her. Definitely recommend picking her up if you enjoy playing Ori. She's one of the most popular champions as well. Really good early game, really good snowball. Of course, if you play her with Electrocute, her trades in the early game are really strong. She snowballs really hard. You can... By the way, for the people who don't know what I'm talking about when I say snowball, you know, a snowball, if you roll it down, gets bigger and bigger as it picks up more snow. That's the concept of once you get ahead, you can keep getting further and further ahead. And Ari is one of the best champions at doing that. Her wave clear is really good. Her roaming is really good. Everything about Ari is really, really good. Next up, we have Akali, who again I can't put higher than A tier. Her matchups aren't great. This isn't a really good meta for her. She's been kind of out of flavor for a while now. But if you are an Akali god, then she's definitely still a decent champion. Especially if you can cheat, if you can like go Concord now, the buff Concord, that could be pretty insane, low key. Akshan is a great champion if you're one trick. I don't think that the items have really been that great for him. I haven't done enough testing with them to be perfectly honest. I've only played him like in a custom game to kind of check out the new items on him. So I don't fully know, to be perfectly honest. I'm not saying maybe he's super OP and just no one knows about it. I can't really rationalize putting him any higher than A tier in my head. I think overall the items should be a slight buff to him, but I don't think he's really OP by any means. So we're going to give him an A tier. Annie's really, really strong. You can just rush Malignance and one-shot people with your ultimate. She has so much value in catching people out. Her stun engage is just one of the strongest tools for any mage, right? She also benefits quite heavily from the teleport changes, I think. I think teleport in mid lane is actually really good for a lot of mid laners. So overall, I think that Ahri's a safe bet at S tier. Aurelion Sol, I'm gonna put into A tier. A lot of people try to gaslight me and tell me that Aurelion Sol is like this broken champion, and I just don't really, we just don't have any good Aurelion Sol players in NA, and this is why I was putting him low in my tier list. I can rationalize putting this champion in S tier. He's not as strong as Orianna. He's not as strong as Syndra. He's a decent control mage. He's like a Victor, you know, like he's a great late game control mage. I get it, but he's so vulnerable to assassins. He's so vulnerable to flanks. He just has too many vulnerabilities, and he's it's too hard to really get to his late game against good players. It's just they don't allow you. Brand we're putting in the B tier. I think overall Brand again is one of those champions that slight buff in the early game if you rush Leandris, but again Leandris is underwhelming in the late game. So I mean Brand was already not a great mid laner, so I can't really justify putting him higher than B tier. He didn't really benefit or lose out on this patch too much. I'm not gonna put Camille in the mid lane, but you can certainly play her mid lane. Corki, I'm gonna have to put in B tier. I think overall Corki mid has been slightly nerfed. If anything, the items don't look that good on him in general. But with kind of the way that like the meta is shaping out to be, if you're gonna play Corki mid, you need to have like an APC bot or something, right? If you have an AD mid laner and Corki, the enemies are just gonna get rend wins and just completely destroy you, you know? So I think while Corki mid is decent, it's more of a team comp issue usually more than anything. Why I don't rate him very highly in mid lane. He also struggles against a lot of these mages that are meta right now. He gets pretty hard countered by most mages, like Ahri, like Aurelion Sol, like even Annie, right? So it's just not a great meta for him in the mid lane. I feel like he's a lot better as an EDC champion. Diana, I'm going to put the B tier. I don't think she's a great mid laner. I think she's probably a little better in the jungle. Again, she kind of struggles against a lot of these mages if she's not able to one-shot them, and she's not really able to one-shot them right away. I just don't think she's that good of a mid laner. Her wave clear is kind of lackluster. Her being melee kind of forced her to go in the side lane later. She's just not that great, again, especially compared to how strong a champion like Echo can be, right? So not a lot of reason to play Diana again when you play Echo or something similar. We're going to put Fizz in the B tier as well. Again, he started to build the cooldown is just too high. If they fix that, then he could definitely be viable. But that does keep him quite weak. He started to build the cooldown being too high. He takes too long to scale. He doesn't really have any wave clear. He's just not in a great situation for the current mid lane meta. Galio is interesting. I think he's A tier. I can't really justify putting him S tier, but he's definitely really, really strong. And I think he's one of the more underrated mid laners. I think he's been slightly buffed this patch more than anything. I think his ulti has a lot of utility. He also benefits quite a bit from teleport because he's a melee champion. If he gets poked down, he can TP back to the lane. It allows for a lot of shenanigans. But I don't think he belongs in S tier. Caston, after the ultimate buffs, Caston is gonna stay in God tier until they nerf him. I don't know what kind of change they need to do for me to remove Caston from the God tier, like an indirect change, like a meta change. But he benefits a lot from teleport. He's one of the best teleport users in the game. All his items are really strong right now. The main problem of this patch is that the pacing has kind of slightly hurt him because the games usually end before he gets to his level 13. But because of the ultimate buffs, he's a lot stronger a lot earlier on. Right? He doesn't necessarily... Like, the main reason why you want to get level 13 wasn't just for the damage, it was for the ult cooldown to be lower. But now the ult cooldown is really low, even at second rank. Right, so I just can't justify putting him anywhere below God tier. But I do think this patch was a slight nerf to him more than anything. I think it was better last patch. But he's still so far ahead of everyone else that 100% a God tier champion. Jace, I'm not too sure about, to be honest. I'm not sure about... I think I want to put him in A tier. Excuse me. But I think he's one of the weaker A tiers more than anything. You know, I'm going to put him B tier. I don't think he's A tier. He's just not that strong in lane. His wave clear has gotten weaker in mid lane because of the minion changes. I think there's just no reason to really play Jace when you can play an AP champ, when you can play like a mage. I think Jace probably better off Baron lane, but even there he's not really great. He's just in a rough spot in this meta. I don't think he's a terrible champion by any means. I think he's good if you know how to play him. He's just not as strong as he used to be because of how many meta and item changes have happened over time. Gragas we're also going to put in B tier. He's okay. There's no real reason to pick him in my opinion. I think he need to kind of like buff this champion. His numbers are just a tad too low for my liking. Echo we're going to put into S tier. He remains one of those champions where... Actually no, not S tier, A tier. He remains one of those champions that his lane phase wave clear is really good. And that gives him a lot of priority. However, I just don't think he's as strong as the mages currently. I think he can definitely get away from like auto pushing mid lane and looking for roams and kind of dictating the pace of the game. But I can't really justify putting him S tier. I think this is a mage dominated meta, and of course the Wind Brothers. Not too many things change in the mid lane, honestly, because I think mages probably benefit more from teleport than assassins. And the only real buff assassins got were the proto belt buffs. But I don't think that really warrants putting Echo into S tier, right? The AP assassins, which are Diana, Echo, and Fizz, I don't think that really warrants putting them much higher. So I'm gonna, or Akali, I guess, too. I'm gonna have to put them in A tier. One champion that has impressed me quite a lot is Katarina, and speaking of AP assassins. I think the boot change, giving her HP, like giving her health regen, is actually really nice for Katarina. But I think she's probably kind of like... is a little weaker because of the teleport changes, right? Again, the mages can go teleport. I think Katarina is alright, and she can definitely completely take over games, but good players still really know how to play against her, and she's really hard to play in the first place. So I can really justify putting her higher than A tier, but because I really like Katarina, I do think she's one of like the closer champions to jump into S tier from these. Like I call Katarina are probably the two that are the close from moving up. But yeah, I can't really justify putting her higher than that. I really am going to put in B tier. I think overall she got like more nerf than anything in the mid lane. I think she's kind of hurt by the teleport changes, and I think this is hurt by the minion changes. Witsons, actually, probably C tier, honestly, because like in the mid lane she wants to get Witsons to avoid the magic damage, right? Go train to do Witsons or something like that, but with the Witsons nerfed as well, she's just not in a good spot in the mid lane. I think she's a lot better in the Baron lane right now. Karma is... do we even put Karma in the mid lane tier list? We're not going to put her in the mid lane tier list. C tier, Kayle. This is probably her best role, you know? She doesn't deserve it to be in... does she? I think if you can pick her in a good matchup, she's actually fine in the mid lane. You just have to find good matchups for her, and I think she's actually... like, this is probably the best role for her more than anything. And with the Nashor's Tooth buff, she's even slightly better. So I'm going to put her in B tier this time. I've always had her in C tier, but she's been like close to going up to B tier. So I think this is the patch where I'm going to finally put her in B tier and be happy with it. Kennen. Kennen could be an S tier champion, honestly. If you find him in the right matchup, the main thing holding him back is his wave clear is really bad, right? And right now in mid lane, you need to have good wave clear, I think, to really be a good mid laner. Especially with the teleport changes, there's so much roaming and snowballing going on. It's really hard to justify putting him S tier without a good wave clear. But his team fights are awesome, so his 1v1 is good, his assassinations are good. A really good champion. Lucian, straight to C tier. I don't think I need to explain this. Don't play Lucian mid, he's an ADC. He's been balanced around being played ADC. I'm going to put him C tier to deter people from playing him more than anything. Morgana, I think she's actually weaker this patch because of the Leandry's change. I think it's still okay. Like you can still go like Ludens into like Leandry's and still be okay. But I think that or Ludens into Rallies and still be okay and provide a lot of utility. But I think that the Leandry's change nerfed her more than anything. I still think she's an okay mid laner. I might put her S tier in a later tier list if my mind about her kind of changes, but I think she overall got a little weaker on this patch compared to other champions. Orianna S tier, one of the best mages in the game, benefits from the teleport chains as well, continues to be one of the best champions. Yeah, not much to say there. One of the better mid laners. Lux is gonna go. I feel like Lux is more of an A tier champion. Her burst is really good. The problem with Lux is she just struggles against a lot of like assassin matchups, like the Kassadin, like the Echo, like the Fizz, like the Akali, like the Katarina, like the Zed, like the Yasuo, like the Yone. She just struggles in a lot of matchups. But if you can get her into a good matchup, well, then she can be really good, especially if you have the right setup for her to get like good combos off. Malphite I'm not going to put in the mid lane tier list. Just don't pick Malphite mid, please. Especially not AP Malphite mid. What are we missing here? Okay, none of these are mid laners. Seraphine, we're not going to include her mid lane for the purpose of this tier list. Team I'm going to include mid. And I'm just going to put him A tier. Very similar explanation to Baron lane. I actually think that he's probably better off in mid lane based on the current meta because his Baron lane matchups are going to be too hard to really play. Twisted Fate, we're going to put into A tier. I like Twisted Fate. Do not build. I keep seeing a lot of people build on hit on him, and I'm like, is this why Twisted Fate's win rate is so low? Because people keep building on hit or what? But yeah, the main problem with Twisted Fate is his cleanse completely dooms him. I think he probably benefits a bit from the teleport changes. Do not build on hit on him, just build him AP. He also kind of lost out on Magnetic Blaster. He liked the previous Magnetic Blaster more. I think this one actually gives less range, by 25 range. And it gives AD, which kind of a useless stat. He preferred like the attack speed before. And he got more expensive too. So overall, I feel like I got a bit weaker this patch more than anything, but he's not weak enough to put him into B tier or anything like that. So we'll keep him in A tier. Veigar, one of the most underrated champions in the game, in my opinion. If you know what you're doing on Veigar, you can be an absolute monster on him. I do think he got slightly nerfed this patch because of the game pacing. He's not able to really get to that late game Veigar fantasy that easily anymore, but he does benefit a lot from a teleport change. He's one of the best teleport users in the game. He didn't even really like any of the other summoners. I see a lot of people go like Exhaust for like Dive, and sometimes people go Ignite on him, sometimes go Exhaust, sometimes Barrier, sometimes even Ghost. But he did never really had a good summoner spell, and I think Teleport is a really good summoner spell for him. I've been yapping so much, man. My throat's starting to hurt. I've got more yapping to do. Let's lock in. Next up, Pantheon I'm not going to include in the mid lane. Varus I'm not going to include in the mid lane. Tristana I will not include in the mid lane. Yasuo S tier. Benefits from the items overall, I think, from what I've seen. Bloodthirster looks to be really, really good rush on him. With attack speed boots, who also got buffed, right? Yeah, definitely an S tier champion. I can't really rationalize putting him in the God tier, but definitely a strong S tier champion. He's going to be joined by his Wind brother. I might as well put him up right now for very, very similar reasons. I think their crit damage builds are really good right now. And they overall have pretty good matchups in the mid lane where they don't have to face champions like Fiora and Jax. Zed I'm kind of hesitant to put into S tier, to be perfectly honest with you. I think I'm going to put him into A tier. I think he's better off jungle. He's still in the okay mid laner. The problem with the Zed mid lane is that he takes quite a bit to get going. He gets poked down quite a bit. It's really hard to all in someone with your ulti from full HP. They usually end up surviving in the early game. It's not like jungle where you're kind of like surprising them, right? And they're usually pretty low when you come in for the fight anyway. You have your teammate to help you. I just don't. I think he's good, but I don't think I can justify putting him into S tier in his current state. Also, I think the teleport change is probably a small nerf to him, right? Because if somebody's half HP, they can just base teleport and they're back to full HP, and you're back to try and poke them down to your ult range. It's kind of hard to snowball with him right now. I don't think he's weak by any means, but I can justify putting him into S tier. In his current state, Ziggs, I really thought Ziggs would be stronger, to be honest. I really thought he would be stronger. I'm still going to put him in the S tier. I thought that he would break the barrier and go to God tier because of how important turrets have become. I still think he's a really good champion. I think he benefits from the teleport changes. Again, Ziggs is one of those champions where you didn't really know what summoner spell to take. I think teleport can be a really good choice for him. And you can still just roam around and take turrets. I just thought you would be God tier, you know. So that didn't end up happening. I think he's still a really good champion though. Especially with the Bandle fantasy item, right? The Louis and Zago clone. I think that's really good on him. And the poke build. Zoe we're putting into S tier. I think Zoe's actually one of the strongest champions right now. I think I've been rating her too low in my tier lists probably. I know that she's one of the best champions in China for legendary due to a lot of players like going Zoe. I think I've been probably underrating her more than anything in my tier list. I've started playing her a bit more myself, and she does feel really, really strong. So I'm pretty confident putting her in S tier. Who's next? Swain, we're gonna put to A tier. I think he's actually a pretty strong champion overall. Kind of overrated and underrated at the same time, if that makes any sense. I think his AP build is really good. He did get a slight nerf though, so I think a lot of people think that he's super OP still, but he's not OP. He's decent, he's good, he's not super OP though, and he does have a lot of counterplay right now. I'm excited for the Swain rework, and then I'll put him back into S tier when the rework is live, if they keep the numbers the way that they are in the PB server, for those of you that watch my Swain video. And next up we have Vladimir, who I'm gonna put in the B tier. He's just too hard countered by all of these like mages, you know. He's just not able to keep up. He's too weak in the early game, and his late game isn't strong enough to make up for it. I'd rather have any other mage, right? Yeah, I kind of believe he needs buffs more than anything. Next up, Zyra, for the people that play her mid. She does a lot of damage. She's a contender for S tier. I just think she has too many bad matchups. Especially if you play against something like a Zed, a Yone, a Kassadin, and Ahri. You're just too vulnerable, I think. You don't really have any escape tools. And your CC tool, like for example, Syndra with her knockback can escape from a lot of champions. Zyra with her root, it's pretty easy to avoid the sidestep and still run into her and kill her. So I can't really justify putting her S tier, even though her damage is really high. Syndra is a clear S tier. I don't think I need to explain this. Her damage is just really, really high. She benefits from the teleport changes as well. Not much to say there. Also, I want to mention for Katarina, Infinity Orb buff was really useful for her. She's one of the best users of Infinity Orb now. It's another reason why she's A tier all of a sudden. Lysandra is going into A tier as well. Her ultimate is super useful, but again, you can just cleanse it. Her damage is not enough to one-shot champions, so she's kind of reliant on her team. Not a terrible champion, but I can put her higher than A tier. Heimerdinger, same. Heimerdinger can be good as more of like a niche pick, like kind of a cheesy pick, and she can help you siege down turrets, which is really nice. However, he's pretty easy to play against for good players, I think, and that kind of makes him weaker, especially in the mid lane. He's still a decent champion, right? If you're a good Heimerdinger, don't be discouraged by this. Definitely play some Heimerdonger. But I just can't justify putting him into S tier. I think he's a good A tier champion though. Rise, we're gonna put into S tier. I think his damage is really high. His scaling is really good. I do prefer him mid lane now than Baron lane, even though before I thought he was really good in both. I think he's more of a mid laner right now. His mid game damage is good. You have to watch out with your positioning, but if you're watching out for your positioning, then you're gonna be a-okay. Talon, Talon mid laner, don't play Talon mid. Aurora, we're also gonna put into A tier. I see a lot of people put her like higher. I don't really think Aurora is that good. I think she can snowball really hard under the right circumstances. Similar to like Ahri. I think she's a very similar champion to Ahri more than anything. But I don't think that she has the same. I think she has the same like raw strength while she's even. Right? I think when she gets ahead, she can definitely snowball. But when she's even or behind, she's just not very useful as a champion. Okay, and that's our clue to close the window because that was really loud. Zillion, not a mid laner, put him D tier. Victor, we're gonna put into A tier, really strong late game mage, similar to Aurelion Sol, but I think he's kind of nerfed this patch because of the pacing changes. You're not really getting those late game fantasies as easily, and those games are ending quite a bit earlier. However, he can still have a lot of impact. Also, just to be consistent, right, I put Veigar into S tier and Victor into A tier, but Veigar also has the same issues. I do want to point out that Veigar is still way more useful even when he's not at his super late game fantasy because of his third ability stun, right? Insane teamfight impact. While Victor's second ability does not have the same impact. And Veigar's ult being point and click and doing missing health damage will still keep him useful even in the mid game, even if he's not in that super late game fantasy. While Victor and Aurelion Sol purely rely on that super late game fantasy, right? Just to be consistent, you know. Vex is a champion that I missed. S tier for sure, one of the strongest mages in the game. Very underrated champion, especially versus champions with a lot of mobility, right? She's a great counter to that, similar to Poppy, right? She's the Poppy before we even had Poppy. I can't justify putting her any lower than this. I'm just checking if I'm missing any champions. I don't think I am. Am I? Am I missing any champions? I don't think so, right? Nope. Just a quick scan. I guess you can play Rumble mid if you want. He'd probably be like A or S tier, but he's more of a Baron laner in my opinion, so I'm not gonna include him here. But he would be like a S, probably S tier. You can play Pyke mid if you want. Rakan mid you can play after the buffs maybe, but again I'm not gonna include these champions in the tier list. Like you can play Wukong, you can play anything mid, but I'm not gonna include those champions in the tier list that are not really primary mid laners. Because you could literally play anything mid, to be honest. It's the way that the role works. But yeah, I think this is it for the mid lane tier list. Akshan is obviously not an ADC, so I'm not even going to include him in my ADC tier list. Do not play Akshan in the dragon lane, please. Ashe is going straight into S tier. The mini rework was overall a pretty nice buff to her, and she benefits a lot from the new items. This is a very clear S tier, in my opinion. Caitlyn's going into A tier. She benefits again quite a bit from some of the items, and she has a lot of early game strength. However, I think the S tier champions are just a bit better. But not to say that Caitlyn is weak by any means. You know what? No, I'm going to put her S tier. I think she's S tier. I think she's stronger than the A tier champions. I think she's stronger than the A tier champions. I'm going to put her S tier. For sure. Corki we're actually going to put in S tier. Corki's one of those champions that kind of always benefits from item changes because, like, he's always going to find an item that he likes, right? The new Essence Reaver seems pretty good on him. Right? Overall, it seems pretty decent. But the main issue that I feel like Corki has is the Moral Reminder isn't that great on him because of how much, like, ability damage he does as well. So I'm not sure exactly what the best build on him is right now, but I think overall Corki benefits more than what he loses. The only reason I don't have him God tier, I do think he's like a top 3 ADC, but the only reason I don't have him God tier is because of MF. I just got a massive buff for absolutely no reason. No idea why they just buffed her like this. She's clearly a god tier champion. The only reason why Corki isn't like Corki's between god tier and S tier, I just can't really rationalize putting him in the same tier as MF because of how strong MF is. Ezreal, this is a champion that I think overall got nerfed more than anything. I think he's probably better off building like the new items like Essence Reaver and so on. I don't think are good on him. Like Navori, not good on him. I think he's probably better off just going to previous build, just Man Immune, Trinity Force, and so on. Right, but overall, I'd still say it's kind of like a slight nerf to him more than anything. But I think if you play him, actually, I'm gonna put him S tier. You know, if you build Man Immune, Trinity Force, if you just build him correctly, he's still a really good champion. Just build him correctly. I've seen too many people do troll builds on Ezreal, bro. Just build him correctly. Stop going Essence Reaver. Stop going bad items on him, bro. Just do the old build. Please, just but like it doesn't benefit really from the new items, and I see a lot of people just troll with him. Jinx overall probably benefited, but she's not that strong to begin with. So we're gonna put her in A tier. Jhin, good choice. I think overall benefited probably. He really likes the new magnetic blaster. However, I just can't rationalize put him in the same tier as the S tier champions, but overall, quite strong in my opinion. Like it sucks that he lost Stormrazor. He was like the best Stormrazor user, but I think he really likes going like magnetic collector. I feel like that's a really good build on him. It kind of gives him everything that he needs. Kai'Sa, I don't really know how I feel about Kai'Sa. I think overall she didn't benefit. I've seen a few crit Kai'Sas pop off, but I think overall she didn't really benefit from these item changes as much as I initially thought. I'm not sure what the best build on her is. I'm not sure how great she does with the new Runans. I low-key thought that this patch would be an overall like pretty big buff for Kai'Sa, but in-game it hasn't really felt like it from what I've seen. So this is mostly out of intuition. I would love to hear some arguments against it in the chat on why she should be higher, but I can't really justify putting higher. Samira I think has been one of the biggest beneficiaries of the patch. I think she does extremely well with the new items. I think the collector is really strong right now. I'm the biggest collector hater, but it's actually just strong right now. I think it's one of the best collector users. Like Bloodthirster, Collector, Moral Reminder, Infinity Edge, and like another crit item, and this champion is just so much damage, it's actually disgusting. So yeah, I can't rationalize putting her lower, honestly. Sivir, I think actually is one of the biggest losers of the patch. I think she had a really good build before with the Bloodthirster rush. I think I'm probably still rushing Bloodthirster on her, and then maybe going like Navori or something. But overall, I think she actually might have gotten nerfed this patch. Is my feeling, maybe like a slight nerf. I think it's great if you still play her the way you used to before, and her ultimate is still obviously a lot of value. Lucian, I think is one of the... I think he benefits slightly. I thought he was quite weak before, but I think he overall slightly benefits from this patch. So I'm going to put him in A tier. Draven, I'm also going to put in the A tier. I think he benefits quite a bit from this patch, especially at full items. He's damage with Infinity Edge is absolutely disgusting at 5 items. I think he's really good in the early game, and he's one of the best collector users as well. Which again, I think is a really good item. I think if you're a god on Draven, like I am, he's probably S tier, but you need to be like absolutely GOAT on Draven. Has to be like a good Draven game as well. So I think I'm just gonna put him in A tier. I think that's more fair, but could definitely easily be S tier as well. We're still missing a few ADCs like Xayah. There she is. Xayah we're gonna put into S tier. I think she's really benefited from the items. I think she's an easy S tier. Could even potentially be God tier. However, I think MF is just way too good. So I can't put anything below her. Now let's talk about some overrated champions. Zeri, I think is just overrated. I don't know what all the hype is about. Maybe I'm not fully understanding her kit. She just doesn't feel that strong. I feel like her early game is not strong enough. Her mid game is meh. Her team fighting is kind of meh. Like, the things she's supposed to be really strong at, she doesn't feel very strong. Maybe I'm just completely wrong about Zeri, but she doesn't feel that strong. A champion that I was slightly wrong about and probably overestimated is Varus, but I can't find him anywhere here. So I'll just put Twitch into... we'll do B tier. We'll be nice towards the little rat, but he could very easily be a C tier champion as well. Some of the champions that maybe I was slightly wrong about were Varus. The problem with Varus is that, yes, his on-hit build is insanely strong, but he doesn't really have the options to do much anymore, right? He's kind of locked into going this on-hit build. Maybe he can go like AP with Nasser's Tooth, but he doesn't really have the options that he had before. Before, he could go AP, he could go on-hit, he could go AD, he could go this hybrid burst build. His hybrid burst build is just way weaker now. Where is Varus, by the way? I've been like looking for him and I can't find him. Not in this row, not in this row, not in this row, not in this row, not in this row. Oh, nope, he is in that row. So I'm gonna put him S tier because his on-hit build is really good, but all his other builds are a lot weaker now. And just kind of depends on how you rate that. In my opinion, I think that overall he's probably weaker than what he was, but he was really OP. So I think this is like a good way to approach nerfing Varus. Remove his insane options and his insane burst build. I'm not sure if he'll need additional nerfs to his second ability. He does insane amounts of damage when he can stack his lethal tempo and so on, but I can't really justify putting him into God tier like I initially thought he would be. So I was a little wrong about how OP Varus is. He's still really strong with on-hit build though. Vayne A tier, I think this patch was actually benefit her more than anything. I think Magnetic Blaster buff has really helped her. There's a lot of items that give a lot of attack speed. I haven't really tried Phantom Dancer on her, but I'm sure that could be a really interesting item. But you could just go like a Magnetic Blaster into Trinity Force, and that could be a really good build with attack speed boots even, now that they give healing. But Omnivamp is still fine too. The small rework on her second ability pretty much changes nothing. Maybe it was a slight buff to ADC Vayne. Kalista we're putting into B tier, she's just weak. I can't even put her in B tier, but I'm putting her C tier. Like, they said they would buff her in the patch notes, and then they didn't buff her in the actual game. Or they did half the buffs of what they said they would do. Which is like, kind of like why are you even doing that? Riot? Like, what's the point of doing that? Does she make us sad, or does she give us false hope? And I think that's every ADC. Obviously I haven't included Senna. Excuse me. I haven't included Senna, and I haven't included Nyla or Akshan or Kindred, right? These are marksmen, but they're not really dragon laners. Senna I'm going to include in the support tier list. But this is it for the ADC tier list. I don't believe I've missed any champions. If I have, I am sorry. Oh wait, I've missed Tristana. Where's Tristana, bro? That's like a pretty important ADC to include, isn't it? Tristana overall, I think probably a slight buff more than anything, but Tristana is just overall pretty weak after the nerfs that they did to her a while ago. And she doesn't really get her late game fantasy with that insane range this patch either. Like, the items are good for her, but the game pacing has kind of hurt her. She's definitely not C tier. She's between A tier and B tier, but I don't think I can put her in A tier. I think I'm just going to keep her B tier. I think this is something I'm happy with. I think I'm happy with this tier list. But again, feel free to comment below, explain why my rationale on any of these champions is wrong. I would love to hear it. Alright, Alistar. Alistar, I actually think he's like a decent champion. I think he's quite underrated. I'm gonna put S tier. I think he's actually really, really good if played well. I think he's super tanky, has a lot of roaming potential, really good engages, kind of an underrated champion overall. Bro, I'm S tier, again, really good against engage. Blitzcrank, his stats are too high to not put him S tier. These are pretty obvious on support, to be honest. Like, his stats are just way too high to not put him S tier. Brand, I think is fine if you rush Leandries, however, not the strongest choice for support. He only does give damage and nothing really else, but Brand is not in a good spot in general right now, and I think overall he might have kind of nerfed and buffed this patch, even though it kind of looked like buffs from the outside. Janna, I'm not actually sure if Janna should be in S tier. I don't think she's bad. I think enchanters overall are pretty good right now with the AD carry changes. I'll put Brandon C tier, I think. I'm gonna put Brandon C tier. I think I'm gonna put her in A tier, but I think she could potentially be A tier. Lulu S tier. I'm gonna put her in God tier just because of the ADC hype. I think she's really, really good. She's probably the best go-to enchanter support. But I don't think I can put her higher than that because I think the God tier champions are pretty obvious in my opinion. Karma again is another great enchanter. She also brings a lot of damage. Can absolutely dominate. First God tier champion, I'm putting Rakan. I think Rakan is such an underrated champion right now. I saw some people not put him on the top of their tier list for support, and I feel like they didn't read the patch notes or something because the buff on him was insane. I think he belongs in God tier. I could be completely wrong about this one, but I've played him and I'm on like a 5-game win streak with him. I don't know, he just feels really strong. I don't really know what else to say. Now, again, all of these enchanters are gonna be S tier except the shielding enchanters, which are gonna be A tier probably. The Seraphine Sona duo. Again, these are just shield spammers. I think overall they benefit quite a bit. Enchanters benefit quite a bit from the patch because of the Ardent changes. If they're supporting a crit champion, that's overall a buff. They benefit from Harmonic Echo, which kind of makes me want to put them in S tier. Do I put them in S tier? Is Harmonic Echo and Ardent not good? I don't know. I think I have to put them in S tier, chat. I know the S tier is getting very clumped, but I don't think Jen. I think Seraphine and Sona probably go S tier with the support and buffs and the Veil buffs too. I think they just have to be S tier. Morgana we're putting straight into C tier. This champion is ass as support. So I'm just gonna let you guys know. So your second ability on Morgana does nothing but push the wave. Do you like max on support? Probably not. So it does nothing. It's like it doesn't even exist because there's no damage. Your first ability is a route that's insanely hard to hit and extremely easy to dodge. And AD can just go cleanse and then you don't even have a first ability. And your third ability, while yes has decent utility, blocks magic damage, which usually most champions in the bot lane are doing physical damage for pokes. It's not really helping you in trades. It's only helping you against the all-in. So let's say I'm playing Leona, you're playing Morgana, you counter me, you put your black shield on who I'm going to throw my third ability on. I'm going to just ult the next target that you don't put the shield on and kill them instead. And then Morgana just sits there and watches and does nothing. Her ult is actually impossible to connect with. Like Morgana is good because of her second ability, so she's not good on support. Is simply the argument for Morgana. You guys can argue about it in the comments, but Morgana is never going higher in my tier list as support. This champion used to have like her whole kit buffed for me to consider her support. Like her first ability needs to root for 10 minutes, which it already kind of does low key, but I can rationalize putting her higher. Soraka again. The harmonic echo changes have just been really nice for these spam healers. I think Soraka more than anything probably benefited the least from these changes, but if you can find a good matchup for Soraka, and she's really good against enchanters in general, so like if you're playing against Sona, Soraka, Karma, or probably not Karma, but Sona, Soraka, Sona or Seraphine, Soraka can be a good counter to these types of champions. Zara I'm going to downgrade to the A tier, mostly because of the Leandry's nerfs, which is something she really relied on, and her damage is going to be lower as a support. And I think enchanters kind of got buffed, and like tank engages counter her. Like she would be a counter to enchanters who got buffed. So like the cases where she's good, now she's way less good, and the item nerfs kind of hurt her. Nautilus obviously got tier. I think I've explained in previous patches, his kid is just, he's one of the best engaged champion in the game. Simple as that, kind of. Lux we're going to put into A tier. She's decent. I think overall the patch was maybe slight nerf to... So it's a nerf to her. I think every other champion, like again, she counters the enchanter champions, right? She's not going to be one-shotting a Nautilus or a Blitzcrank or an Alsar, right? She's going to be one-shotting these champions who just received buffs. So the champions that she's good against got buffed. making her good situations less good, right? Senna, I'm gonna put into A tier. This potentially, actually, this is an S tier champion. So the thing with Senna is, right, if you're gonna play Senna with Seraphine, no, if you're gonna play Senna with like Samira, you're gonna lose the game, right? Senna needs the right team comp for her. Senna needs a big front line. The most ideal way to play Senna is to have like a Nautilus farming, right? And you're just playing her support and getting the stacks. Or have like a Nasus or like a Bruiser that's farming and you just get the stacks. You need to have a big front line for Senna. That's her main issue as a support. And if you are playing ADC Senna, it's kind of hard to make your like support like, yo, can you just farm the wave, right? And have to pick the right champion for it. But I think in the right situation, Senna is very, very strong, so we're gonna put her in S tier. I see a lot of people play Veigar support. I don't know if my video kind of caused it, but I don't think it's bad to play Veigar support. I'll probably put him in B tier though. I wouldn't put him as high as Lux or Zyra, so I'm gonna include my tier list since a lot of people are putting him. A lot of people are playing him. Yuumi, I see a lot of people rate her insanely high, guys. I think I've explained this like a million times, but Yuumi's not actually a good champion. If there's two teams and they're both of equal skill level, right? All 5 players in both teams equal skill level. Yuumi's one of the weakest champions in the game. And this is why you never see her in like scrims or in competitive matches or in houses. Because he's just really, really weak. What makes Yuumi strong is that if you have one good player in a team, and you put Yuumi on them, they become a god. So let's say that both teams have 4 master tier players each, and 1 sovereign player, right? Being able to put Yuumi on that sovereign player will make the game so much easier for them, and they'll win the game for you, right? And this often happens in low relo, where like somebody's gonna be smurfing and they're gonna have Yuumi on them, and people are gonna be like, wow, Yuumi's so unstoppable, but it's not the Yuumi, it's just you have a really good player that the Yuumi's sitting on, kind of tipping the balances. But like in a game where like it's not Smurfs and everyone in the game is like pretty equal in skill level, Yuumi's just an absolute trash champion. So I'm not putting her higher than B tier. Anyone in my comments who says she belongs higher is just straight up wrong. This isn't really up for debate. I'm not gonna include Galio. I guess I can include Galio and Gragas in my tier list. They get completely countered by enchanters, but especially Galio, but they can be good answers to something like a Rakan or a Nautilus. So I'm gonna include them in the B tier. This guy I'm gonna put C tier just to discourage people from picking him. Leon I'm gonna put into A tier. Again, good engager, but nowhere near as good as Rakan or Nautilus. Also, another point about Rakan, he's a champion that can also build the support items. So he benefits from the support items quite a lot. The build that I like doing on him is just rushing going like CDR boots, ability haste boots, and then going redemption into harmonic echo, and then I might get like ardent or something. So I got like a pretty supportive build and just spam my abilities. Like your second ability has such a low cooldown, it's actually crazy. Milio is the other god tier champion. He is just so broken with a lot of these ADCs right now. He's like he's kind of like, he's like Lulu and Yuumi, right? That type of champion has hard buffs in ADC, but Millie does it to an insane amount right now. Like the range you're getting, I play in some Millias this patch, bro, it's crazy. This champion's so cracked with the new ADCs. Nothing more to really say, it's so cracked. And he's such a hard champion to punish. Thresh, I really want to put higher. I think he's a champion with an insane skill ceiling. Like, if you're really good on Thresh, you can definitely shine. But I just don't think he's as good as the S tier and God tier champions. So, unfortunately, I think his lane's really good. He can bully a lot of these enchanters. But now that they're buffed, it's like I would just rather have just pick Seraphine in my team. Don't pick Thresh, you know? Just make the game easy for me. You know, like if you're a god on Thresh and you can stomp these enchanters in lane, then yes, he's good, but it's so hard to do. It's so much easier to just sit under your tower and play one of these enchanters right now, at least because of how strong their items. Like, their items are actually quite weaker than what they used to be because they've received several nerfs. but they're slightly better at the same time, if that makes sense. Like, they receive a massive nerf and they receive a small buff. So they're weaker than what they used to be, but they're better than last patch, you know? So they're overall decent. Other honorable mentions is champs like Heimerdinger, which I think are really good support if you know what you're doing. But I'm not going to include him in my tier list for obvious purposes. Set is another one I think is actually pretty bad right now, so I wouldn't recommend playing him overall. And Swain, who I think should also be not played support anymore. I could include him in C tier. Yeah, I'll include him in C tier for you guys because I know you guys love seeing Swain. Pretty sure it was broken support who really started the Let's Play Swain fad going. Okay, I have forgotten about Pike. There's Pike. Pike is probably weaker than last patch, to be perfectly honest with you, but he's one of those champions that if you know what you're doing, you can just snowball games. You can just completely take over in 1v9. And I think that is it for the supports. So if you guys watched this entire yapping session, I hope you have a better understanding of my tier list. Choices. If I forgot a champion, please let me know down in the comments, and I'd be happy to let you know what I would have ranked them if I didn't forget them. Please leave a like. Oh, Zillion. Oof, almost forgot the GOAT, bro. Okay, Zillion, definitely S tier. His kid is really OP. Dude, I almost forgot Zillion. Yeah, his kid is really OP. He's borderline God tier. I just think the God tier champions are just a bit stronger, but he's probably in between S and God tier, if anything. I think he's one of the stronger S tier champions, if that makes sense. Anyway, thanks so much for liking. If you watched the entire video, comment down below. I watched the entire video, so I know that you're an OG. You're a real lover of royal videos, and I appreciate that. Leave a like if you enjoyed. If you want me to do this for every big patch, comment that down below too, or if you just want a quick tier list without all the yapping. I'll probably do that for like patch 6.1, this 6.2a, 6.2b, but then like for 6.3 I might do this format again when there's another like huge meta changing patch, just to help you guys understand why things are the way they are, why I consider some champions stronger than others. So yeah, thanks so much for watching. Leave a like and subscribe for more Wild Rift content.